let these people out here put the boards up, so we're not listening to the pounding. I think they have one board left after this one, I think.
Call this meeting to order at 6:05. We do have some construction going on, so we may have to do some pausing. This is a regular meeting for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
I sure will. Tim Hale.
Here.
Stephanie Nowers.
Here.
Dee McKee. Robert Yunt.
Here.
Moki 2.
Here.
Ron Bernier.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anything any of the members would like to pull from the consent agenda? Yes, Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead. Okay.
It is AM 23011, approval of contract amendment to the contract with Harris Consulting.
Okay,
That's the only one I have.
that's the only thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else they would like to pull? Okay, hearing none, then the agenda is approved as presented. If you'll all rise, please. And Assemblyperson 2, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, right. The next item on our agenda is minutes of preceding meetings. The ones we have are the Assembly regular meeting of December 8th, 2022, Assembly regular meeting minutes of December 20th, 2022, Assembly regular meeting minutes of January 3rd, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes as they were presented? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then the minutes are approved. The next item is reports and correspondence. Agency reports, don't see anybody from either one of the three cities. And let's see, don't see anyone from the school district. Report from the state, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members, and staff, and constituents. Todd Smolden with the Governor's Office. It seems like it's been a little while. I might have missed a meeting, but maybe I know I've missed a lot of your meetings recently. You've had a lot of kind of special ones, but I asked this question to a group today when I was giving some information on the governor's carbon initiative, and I asked the group of about 20 people how many watched the governor's State of the State speech, and only 3 people raised their hand. So I'm not going to ask you that question. I don't want
And embarrass us.
yeah, to embarrass you. So, but the reality is not a lot of people do watch those things. I think there might have been a State of the Union speech going on right now, or maybe is wrapping up, and I can't say I watched that one. So, I guess the reason why I brought it up though is just some things to be looking toward from the governor coming up here. You know, the governor's priorities really haven't changed that much. Public safety is a big issue with him, and next week he'll be introducing some legislation, some related to fentanyl and tougher penalties for fentanyl dealing and death resulting from that. He'll reintroduce some of his People First initiative legislation that was not heard. That's related to domestic assault and violence and sex trafficking. Hopefully that will get more traction this legislative session. And then, of course, the carbon initiative, which it's been interesting as a school teacher to kind of watch the reaction to that. As a former school teacher, I always really tried to encourage everybody to gather as much information as possible on a subject and then reach a conclusion after you've had good discussion. And I've seen a lot of reaction to that, which indicates that I think people are missing some information. And I guess what I would say briefly is just that the governor is not making an environmental statement with this legislation. He's not saying that he has subscribed to the Green New Deal or he even supports ESG policy. What has happened is that people, entities, mostly voluntary, have approached the state of Alaska to sequester carbon and to look at how they, as groups, can reduce their carbon footprint. And carbon sequestration is an emerging market that exists between people who want to have somebody capture and store their carbon and entities that are willing to do that for money. And so it's not an environmental statement. It is the reality that Alaska is a big place. We have empty oil and gas basins, and that's where carbon that's captured can be stored very safely. There's a I just won't go into all of it, but it's really rather fascinating, and I would encourage people to learn more about it. I have been given the go-ahead to do small presentations to any groups that are interested in learning more about it. There is a lot of information out there, but if you have a small group, or if there's any community councils that are maybe watching online or whatever, I'm happy to do small presentations and just give you some more information and answer questions. So I don't know if anybody has any questions tonight, but I'm happy to take them if you do.
Yes, Assemblyperson.
So
Benier?
this carbon, is it a solid, liquid, gas? What are,
So what people are doing is they're capturing it from, let's say, a power plant that burns natural gas. You can capture the carbon dioxide, and you compress it. And when you compress it to a high enough compression, it actually turns it into liquid form. And then it can be, of course, it takes a lot to create a certain amount of liquid, so it's much cheaper to transport it in liquid form compressed. And then in terms of the capture and the sequestration, then what you do is you inject that liquid into the ground, essentially where oil used to be, and then you can cap it off like you would a normal well. It's captured. If it loses compression, then it just becomes carbon dioxide. It just becomes a gas again and goes into the atmosphere. And it's not highly flammable. I think it burns out at 500 and some degrees is what you need as far as a temperature for CO2 to burn. So I don't know if that answers your
Madam Mayor?
question.
could you burn carbon dioxide and you'd be producing carbon dioxide, wouldn't you?
That's a good question, but it does burn, but at a very high temperature. I don't know what you would be, what the off gas would be of burning carbon dioxide, but that's an interesting question.
Smoke and mirrors.
Well, I mean, I guess when it burns, then yes, it becomes a gas again, just like anything else that you burn.
Assemblyperson Hale, did you have a comment or
Thank you,
question, sir?
Yeah, I had a question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So when you re-inject this into, say, like a old oil well or whatever, is it possible to, say, re-inject it into an active well and increase the head pressure, reduce the lift costs at an active well like they do with natural gas?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe that if it's injected in liquid form, that it actually it can increase output more than just natural gas being re-injected. But I'm not an expert on that, Assemblymember Hale, but I believe I do remember reading that if liquid, I believe because it's denser would have a better result. But that's in a related, I guess, answer to your question through the mayor. Part of the reason why Pika is an attractive play for Repsol is that they are taking advantage of what's called 45Q federal tax credits because they're re-injecting the natural gas into their well. In fact, most of the plays allow oil companies to take advantage of that tax credit. That is a federal tax credit, and people can argue whether or not they agree with tax credits for corporations, but that is part of this as well, is that companies can take advantage of federal tax credits.
Further questions from, yes, Deputy Mayor?
Can you just give a brief explanation of how this can create revenue for the state?
Sure. A company or country, even say like Japan, that wants to be what they would consider carbon neutral. Again, I'm not making a statement on whether that's good or bad, but Japan, let's say Japan wants to be a carbon neutral country. They can require that their entities, manufacturers, whoever, capture their carbon that they produce through the manufacturing process and liquefy that and load it into tankers, take it to the Cook Inlet where the natural gas basin is depleted, and re-inject it into that basin and pay us revenue to store their liquid carbon. That's how the state would make revenue. And it's voluntary. It's Japan believing that that's an important thing for them to do as a country, and we store their carbon for a fee.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and it's the capture and sequestration is just part of it. There's other ways to sequester carbon as well in kelp beds, in undisturbed coastal waters. I know for some people it seems kind of far-fetched. I guess I would just encourage you to do some more reading on it, or if you want, I can provide you with information or some places where you can find information. But it's actually very fascinating and an emerging market. And one of the things that Alaska, I think the reason why we don't diversify our economy is I always hear, well, that's stupid, or it's going to take too long, or things like that. And so then we end up just doing the same thing over and over and over again because we miss out on emerging markets and ideas. So, but thanks a lot. Happy to help you if you have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next item on our agenda is committee reports, and we did have a joint assembly and school board committee. And we do have two assembly person hours and assembly person 2 that attended that. Either one of you want to go first and then the other follow, or?
Sure.
Okay.
So we had 3 updates. One was a busing update, and there wasn't much more to say at that point, except that the latest they had at that point is the strike was still ongoing. And so stay tuned. And then we had an legislative update from the school district. They were down in Juneau, and there was a lot of talk about the base student allocation. The school district notes that has been held static since 2017, although they have received one-time monies. But they're looking at various amounts of increase in the base student allocation down in Juneau. So that's being followed closely. And also we talked about the school bond debt reimbursement and the goal of the borough to keep that at the 70-30 level and have that apply to charter schools that we're looking at building at the borough level. So those were of great interest. And I'll defer to the assembly member who represents Houston for an update on the good news on the Houston High.
Okay.
I think the opening's 3/23. Then Houston will be opened. It's great. It's right after spring break.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
So I would like to put some more in though about the school buses. So as we had this meeting with the school board, and I expressed my frustration that I read in the ADN that there was, I think it was the ADN, that there was only one bid for the school buses. Well, come to find out that that's not true. There was two bids, and the school board actually picked out the high bidder. And the bidder that didn't get chosen was a contractor. First was low bid, 20 years experience, and had good rapport with everything, safety, service, and all this other stuff. And I let him know that I'm not happy because everybody I know has been affected by these school bus problems. And what I would say is if I'm on a train wreck, I want to get off. So this is definitely a train wreck. They need to get off, and I hope that he's hearing it, and I hope he hears it tonight. He needs to do something about it. So I made that clear to those folks over there.
Okay, Assemblyperson McKee.
The folks that you talked about, is that on?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. With the 20 years experience, et cetera, what group was that? What company was it? Are they the folks that had it before,
Yes,
per student?
yes.
Oh, my.
Okay. Any other question? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Not a question, just a comment. I've taken a lot of calls on this. I think there's some confusion out there. People call concerned, want to talk about it. And I got to explain to them that on the assembly, we don't make these decisions. That's the school board. But I do want to point out that 5 of our school board members are new and we're not a part of that decision. And our superintendent, I think, was transitioning in right after the decision was made. So, it is their problem, and it will become their problem if they don't fix it. But I think, in all fairness, we should give them a chance to do that. They weren't a part of the decision. There are processes available to them. They can rebid this. There's a lot of things they can do. And then I would, like Moki saying, I would encourage them to look at all their options because it is affecting our entire community. It's not a small contract. It's a $200 million contract. We're talking, we spend $20 million.
400 million.
Is it? Yeah, I was under the understanding it was 200, but either way, I think we spend about $20 million, give or take a year of our community's money on public transportation for our children. And so I have the utmost confidence in our school board, and I do believe they'll solve the problem. And I'll just leave it at that.
Madam Mayor,
Assemblyperson
thank you.
Allen.
Just to clarify, neither of us have seen the contract, the bids that came through, and the superintendent said the bid from First Student may have had a lower daily rate, but there were riders that made it more expensive. But I would just clarify, I don't know but I think there was unanimous agreement that this has been I don't want to overuse a word. It's been a very poor performance from the current contractor, and that there is a desire to see that resolved in the best way possible. So kids have buses and they run on time. And so that's all.
Either Deputy Mayor or Assemblyperson 2. Assemblyperson 2, go ahead.
$101,000 a day is what we pay for busing.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
One more thing, while we have a representative from the state of Alaska here, I'd like to mention that it's by no means a cause of the state of Alaska, but I think we all know that getting a CDL is substantially harder now than it was, say, when we were kids. But beyond that, my understanding, I talked to one of the companies that I called the owner of one of the companies in Alaska that creates CDL drivers, right? And they are not allowed to create a bus driver. So they can have somebody come in with 20 years of driving experience, certified with a Class A CDL, doubles, tankers, hazmat, you name it, be one of the best drivers on planet Earth, ice road driver. They can't turn them into a school bus driver. There is a major interruption in the free market that's been happening, from my understanding, for close to 20 years. And it is, I've talked to members of our legislature in the last week about it. But it is something that I would encourage the governor's office to look into. Anything that we can do as a state to make it easier. We have some really good small businesses in the state that turn out. In fact, I believe even UAA is doing it now. We got NIT here, Anchorage. There's a company on the peninsula. We need to figure out a way that we can solve this free market problem because there's been a huge interruption in it. And we do need more CDL drivers and we need more certified school bus drivers, even before what's happening now. You remember at the end of tourist season, they get paid better to drive tourist buses. And I imagine some of them get tips. And so we had only half of our bus routes or whatever it was going. Well, that's a supply and demand issue. We didn't have enough drivers. We have drivers up here right now that live out of state who are getting per diem and housing provided and getting paid 7 days a week, even though they're only driving 5 because we don't have enough Alaskans. So I would just encourage the state of Alaska and our legislature and our governor to take a really deep dive into this because I actually think it's probably the biggest problem in the state right now. And we might be the only community suffering right now, but there will be more coming soon, I believe. So that's all I got.
Yes, Assemblyperson 2.
I just want to go a little bit more on that CDL deal. If my blood sugars are too high, I don't get my CDL. So that means I pay the doctor $300. I go home, take some pills, get my blood sugar down. Then I go back, pay another $300, and then I get my CDL. Now, this is a guy that's held the CDL license for 30 years plus or whatever. So there is huge problems with getting CDLs, and the restriction on those have been getting harder and harder and harder and harder. And I think the federal government wanted to make it to if you're too fat, they call it body index or whatever, but if you're too fat, you won't get a CDL. So I do think, thank you, Rob, that if we can get the state to help us with that and allow us to get our CDLs, that would be a wonderful thing.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none. The next item on our agenda is Assembly Public Relations. Are there any public relations reports? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Brown, do you have a report, sir?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be relatively brief. Just a clarification on the Houston High School ribbon cutting. The ribbon cutting is March 23rd, so I might recommend to the clerk that we might want to advertise that. I suspect we might March 23rd. We don't have the time yet. It'll likely be in the morning, but it's envisioned to be like an all-school assembly. So we're doing it when kids are in school, but they will actually occupy the building starting right after spring break, which is that Monday. The 23rd is that Thursday. So we're going to give them a couple days in the school, but the idea is to get in there and celebrate it. Obviously, it's been a long road since November of 2018, but a remarkable outcome. And I guess just for fun, because I have a minute to do this, you know, this school was rebuilt from the ground up, no debt, paid for by insurance, FEMA, and state grants, which is markedly different than what happened in Anchorage with the 2 schools that they had to repair. I'll just leave it at that. Super happy that the building was reconstructed in that we're able to incorporate current, modern seismic code. So as far as like an investment, we took a 35-plus-year-old facility with, a number of deferred maintenance needs, and it's new and set up for the next 50 years. And it was modernized with current career and technical education programming for education, which is aligned with what that community needs. So remarkable outcome. It just took us a little bit longer to get there than our sister municipality, but I would argue that we've gotten a very good outcome for the Houston community. So a lot to be proud of there and celebrate that day. I'm going to shift gears. The Government Finance Officers Association awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the Mat-Su Borough for its comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of government, accounting, and financial reporting, which is obviously a big deal. This has been an award that's been going on for, I guess we could say decades now. I would say years, but it's really been decades. But I don't want to take that for granted. It's a huge lift from our finance team. They do a great job every year to make sure that we're doing all that we can to communicate our financials and make sure that we're doing that in the best way. So my hat's off to Cheyenne and her crew. Again, another year of awards. So appreciate that work. Also wanted to take a moment to recognize Talon Bovey. She was selected as part of the 2023 class of Real Heroes for the American Red Cross of Alaska. She'll be honored by the American Red Cross as an Alaska Safety Hero on May 16th in Anchorage. Talon supports the borough's emergency management group, manages the Community Emergency Response Team program, and continues to promote preparedness through events such as the annual Emergency Preparedness Expo that we host annually at the Menard, and various trainings to community councils and groups throughout the borough. So congratulations to Talon. Appreciate all her efforts on that front of emergency preparedness. And then lastly, I have a question. I guess wanted to give a quick update from one of the topics we discussed in Juneau when the mayor and I made a trip down there last week, HB 22, which is defined benefit legislation. So I kind of want to make sure the assembly's aware of this and see if the assembly wants to take a position for the borough with regards to how the borough might provide testimony as it makes its way through committees. This particular HB 22 in particular is defined benefit for first responders. So it's not all public employees, but as part of PERS, it could have an impact to municipalities. So I think it was envisioned to help with retention at the state level, particularly for law enforcement. But it would likely have a carry-on effect with municipalities since we participate in that state retirement program. So Cheyenne took a look at that, our finance director, to kind of look at what that financial impact could be if a program like this as written were enacted. So right now we have a total of 36 firefighters paying into PERS. 7 of them are under the defined benefit program from back in the olden days. And 29 are under the defined contribution plan. If they were all changed, those 29 were changed to a defined benefit program or the defined benefit plan, the employer percentage would increase from 13 to 22%. That would be for West Lakes Fire Service area, would be about a $75,000 a year increase in cost. And if it was enacted in Central Matsu Fire Service area, it would increase cost by approximately $400,000 annually. I don't believe this bill is written, and I'm kind of looking down to Nick to make sure I don't misstate it. I don't believe it currently includes EMS, but if it were, which is an area-wide function, that would be about an $800,000 a year increase in cost. So just wanted to make sure the assembly's aware of that. We have been asked by one of our state delegation or state legislators to take a position, but we haven't had an opportunity as a body to talk about that. So I wanted to mention that if somebody wants to make a motion that we take a position, or if we want to discuss it, or you'd like me to bring a resolution forward for the body to consider, all of those things are on the table. We're still early in the session, but wanted to at least put that out there so you're aware of it.
Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to make a motion that we do discuss it in a public format and that we do take a position.
Okay. Is there any discussion on his motion? Is there any objection to that motion? Okay. All right. Does that have enough?
Yeah, I guess just for clarification then, just to be clear, the position I assume would be the concerns with cost. As I see the intent of it, where it was intended to improve retention, I don't really see that as our issue right now. So I just want to be clear, what we're talking about here is a position against moving forward with that legislation. Do I understand you correctly?
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, to clarify, I've heard that there may be a retention issue with public safety on the state level, but I've never heard of it on a local level. And so if it's possible that this could affect our finances, I think we should take a little bit of time here, work with our finance department and Ms. Cheyenne and get some more accurate numbers as to what that could be. And then absolutely, we should probably take a position on it. I'm not saying in support or against or anything. I'm telling you, we're probably going to want to have a position on it. And so I think we should block out time and resources to, make a good decision.
Yes, go ahead,
So
sir.
through the mayor, what we'll do is go back, run the financial analysis, throw that together in a reso with an IEM to inform that, and then we'll let the assembly take action from there. Is that fair?
Thank you.
Okay,
That's all, Madam Mayor.
all right, thank you. Mr. Attorney, do you have a report, sir?
Very briefly, some of the members may know, but if not, let everybody know, one of the attorneys in our office is leaving. Hannah, who was our newest attorney, is leaving to go back to work for the Alaska court system. That's where she came from. After hearing about body mass index and CDLs, my lifelong dream of becoming a driver is not going to happen. So I'll still be here. However, I will be, as I mentioned last meeting, I'll be out the next couple of weeks. My parents are funding a family trip down to Disney World for the kids, and we're going as chaperones. So Mr. Ashenbrenner will be here for your next meeting.
Okay, all right. Comments, questions to the attorney? No? Okay, Madam Clerk?
The clerk's report is in your red folders. Also within that report is the budget schedule. So it's basically like we do it every year. There is one little change though, and I'll get to that. So we have a proposed date for April 6th at 10 a.m. for the departmental budget presentations, April 25th, April 18th, April 27th and May 4th as budget public hearings. And this is where we have it a little different than we normally do, but I think it might be a good idea, but it's up to the assembly. May 9th, May 10th, and May 11th for deliberations. That way we're doing it back to back and we know where it's easier to keep track of where we're at.
Okay, discussion, questions? Any objections or anything? Okay, go ahead. We have further report.
I do believe Assembly Member Yunt wanted to change a September meeting date.
Okay,
Out of respect for the body, I would like to see with more timing than I gave or more notice than I gave last year, if we could change the date of our second meeting in September from the 19th to the 26th to accommodate for moose hunting season.
so which date was that?
The 19th, it's not on here.
Oh,
That's way far out. That's not on
oh,
here yet.
that's what I thought he said.
Yeah,
I was,
September-
my mind was on budget, sir. I'm
September
sorry.
19th to the 26th. There are a lot of issues that come up here that outdoorsmen should be participating in, and some units in Alaska end on the 20th and some on the 25th. And I think if we just move it back 1 week, then we can safely make sure that anybody that may want to come here and voice their public opinion can do so.
I don't object as long as we get some of the moose.
Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else, Madam Mayor?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. Okay, so the next item, we have some citizens and other correspondence. Are there any comments on the citizens and other correspondence? Hearing none, then they are presented. Madam Clerk, would you read the IMs into the record, please?
I will. I am 23021, reporting conclusion of contract number 2109109B with Granite Construction for the final contract amount of $415,630.26 for the Sunset Drive Improvements Project. I am 23022, reporting conclusion of contract number 21113B with Prues Construction for the final contract amount of $457,325.25 for the Central Midway Streets Improvement Project. I am 23023, reporting conclusion of contract number 21123B with Western Construction and Equipment for the final contract amount of $582,620.45 for the Michigan Street and Lakeshore Circle Improvements Project. I am 23024, reporting a conclusion of contract 21176B with Valley General Construction for the final contract amount of $464,891 for the Golden Drive, Rainbow Park Drive, Indigo Drive, and Gray Court Improvements Project. I am 23028, informing the Assembly of the addition of 2 new modules to our existing agreement with Tyler Technologies, New World Enterprise Resource Planning. I am 23029, informing the assembly of the manager's signature on and the electronic submittal of a solid waste infrastructure for recycling grant application for the development of composting program at the central landfill. IM 23032, informing the assembly of the manager's signature on and submittal of Alaska State Library continuing education grant application.
Are there any comments on the IMs? Okay, hearing none, they are presented. We do not have any persons to be heard. We do not have any public hearings. We are now to audience participation at this time. So we'll open audience participation. We do have a sign-up sheet, and then after we have allowed the people on the sign-up sheet, we will allow anyone to come and testify. Do we have some people online? Okay. Karen Lewis, you're first. Oh, so John's going to go first? Okay, all right.
Obviously, I'm not Karen, so we decided to switch places here.
Okay,
These are just my notes there.
okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Assembly members. My name is John Miller. I've been a resident here in the Valley for, 45 years, I guess. I have raised 5 children, have 20 grandchildren, so I have a vested interest in the affairs here in the Valley. Today, I would like to talk about election integrity again. Remember, the goal is absolute confidence in our borough and state elections, and we are making great progress here in the Valley thanks to all of you. The Mat-Su Valley voter turnout was very high this year, whereas in the state it was pretty dismal. I think it was the lowest since they've been tracking it. So congratulations. I believe we can have the most honest, transparent, accurate, simple, and efficient elections in the state, or even in the whole country for that matter. I would like to demonstrate a simple solution to comply with the Borough Statute 2520-045, which states, and I quote, "Ballots shall be numbered in series to ensure simplicity, secrecy, and to prevent fraud." Notice, serial numbers on ballots prevent fraud. I'd like to demonstrate a simple way that we can protect the privacy of the voters and have serial numbers on the ballot at the same time, and thus complying with the statute and having a real simple solution. So as of right now, ballots are the tablet that the ballot is fastened to has a serial number on it. The ballots presently aren't marked with a serial number. Serial numbers prevent people from counterfeiting ballots, duplicating ballots, and a number of other ways to avoid that. So the way that this can be done, and I'll demonstrate, is simply by putting the serial number in an indiscreet place in the back of the ballot where no one can see it. When the ballots are ripped off the tablet and placed into the secrecy sleeve and handed to the voter takes it into the ballot box, votes his things, then it's slipped into the ballot box. It's totally private, secure, and nobody has access to know who that voter was or a link between the voter and the ballot. The same thing to the absentee ballots. When people request an absentee ballot, the ballot can be put into a privacy envelope, sent out to that person. When that envelope comes back, the envelope with the information of the voter on it is separated from the ballot envelope. So they're totally separate. So there's no way of tracing that to a voter. So I think it's really important for our, to continue to make our elections, the people having great confidence in our elections and be totally secure and transparent. You are the ones making the Matsu Borough the safest place to vote. Every vote is counted, every voter is verified, and the people are assured the elections are honest, transparent, accurate, simple, and efficient. Where there's a will, there's a way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so now Karen, is it your turn now?
She's next
Yeah.
on the list.
Yeah. I think so. We have,
My name's Karen Lewis, Lewis. Madam Mayor and Assembly people, thank you for hearing us. And again, thank you for making this borough machine free. I mean, the people love it. People love it. Okay. So it's absolutely vital that our ballots are private, but also verifiable. We can't verify our ballots unless they're numbered, and then each ballot can be accounted for. Code states that the ballots shall be numbered in series, not tabs that are removed. Our clerk says that the most important part is to ensure simplicity and secrecy. Those things are important. But absolute integrity and also the people's trust in our elections is every bit as important as secrecy. And I could believe we can have it all. I do. We can do all of that. But the ballots must be numbered. There have been far too many situations where the people have stuffed ballots. Georgia was stuffing illegal ballots into drop boxes. Those drop-off boxes encouraged fraud. I mean, have you seen 2,000 mules? My goodness. There was an enormous amount of fraud. There's also a video from Georgia that shows poll workers declaring a main water break, and they send everybody home, and then they pull out suitcases of ballots out from under covered tables and feed them into the machines over and over again. They wouldn't have gotten caught, but there was a camera that they were obviously unaware of. Cameras can be a good thing, and numbered ballots are too. Michigan voter rolls contain 108.1% registrations, which is more than their voting age population. Alaska is worse. We have 121.7% registration as compared to our voting age population. This is the worst in Erie. We have to do something about that, folks. These numbers were taken from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission website. And ERIC stands for Electronic Registration Information Center, and we need to fix it quickly. Pennsylvania has an interesting story. There was a man who drove about 200,000 filled out ballots from New York to Pennsylvania. He swore it in an affidavit. Obviously, Pennsylvania stuffed illegal ballots like a son of a gun, too. So numbered ballots would have helped that in that area. And right now, Arizona has at least 2 races that are being challenged from the 2022 election. Evidence has shown over 300,000 ballots where the chain of custody was broken, and 148,000 where the signatures don't match, but were counted anyway. I mean, this kind of stuff has got to stop. I think it will. I think states are taking it. Thank you.
thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the Assembly and staff. This is going to be a little bit different. I have the word of the Lord for one of you Assembly members. And so I bring this to you with a heart. I'll explain it. You know, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I believe that, you know, he died for my sins and rose from the dead. And I came to know that and know his love by what he did for me. I've also seen his love in ways that if I told most of you here that you would not even believe or understand me. But this word here comes from Joshua 5:13. And Joshua 5:13, and the story behind this is that Joshua is bringing the Israelites into the chosen land there. And he's coming to his first battle, and he meets an angel of the Lord. So when it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him, which with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as the captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? So notice the angel didn't say, I'm for you, Joshua, or I'm for your adversary, but he was for the Lord. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. There's no man that comes to the Father except through me. Jesus is the way, and God has his way. And Joshua chose to go that way. God's not for me. God's not for you. God has his own way. Now, referring to this code that we're looking at, the code says to put a serial number on a ballot. The clerk refuses and says, for privacy reasons, we're not going to do that. The code says it is to prevent fraud. The left does not want to prevent fraud. Both fraud can be prevented and privacy can be upheld. Robert Yunt, this word of the Lord is for you. Choose this day who you will serve. Thank you.
Before I start and start using up my time, which I don't even know that I'll use the whole time, just want to thank you for assembly members and everything else, really do, very much. I didn't start my clicker. None of us that have been working diligently and very hard on this thing have been, is making any implications whatsoever of fraudulence or negligence nor anything else. It's just that the people of our community are not happy with the elections and they don't believe that they're honest at all. That's been said over and over, but that's the premier point of it all. And so as the overseers of that portion, you are the ones who are responsible for making sure that that you can solve that problem for them. And people's elections and their vote is the most precious thing that we have, far more than anything else. People of the world would just be thrilled to be able to have a voice within their government. You know, here they may be in abject poverty. So we're not making implications or anything. We're just trying to help you and facilitate you along in this process to say, hey, let's really ensure that it is, because there is so much fraud and a means and abilities for that to occur. As has been said before, code 25, period 20, period 245 on the ballots. It says specifically that the ballots shall be numbered in series to ensure simplicity and security, and to be able to prevent fraud. So it's people who wrote this to begin with and determined that said it's there. At this point, all of you are in violation of your own code. So I guess we'll just have to come in and just haul you all away then. So, you know, get it right, do it right. And we've already presented a way that we can pull this off so that everybody's being able to be secure, safe. We print it on the backside. We've thought through this all different kinds of ways, and it can be done. And that way there can be no more ballots, print it up, run through. And what we're doing is trying to be able to get maybe a little cookie cutter here so that we can present this to the other boroughs. And then maybe we can get the whole state. And then after we got the state, we can also transport this down to the counties in the lower 48. And so that people can finally begin to take some of this back, which people feel so helpless. They feel like there's nothing we can do. It's a tyrannical government dictating to us, and we have no power, and the government has gone crazy. And if you see the stuff and things that the president is putting up there, you say, good Lord, this is insanity. There are no rights. So thank you very much. Just do it. Move with me. Thank you.
Lori, would you state your name
I'm
for the
sorry.
record?
Lloyd Thurman.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Thanks, guys.
Richard?
I'm Richard Stoffel from Palmer, and thank you for giving me opportunity here to speak to you about election integrity. And thankfully, we will not have to put our votes in a computer for the next borough election. Although this is the most important part of election integrity, because you put your vote in the computer, there's nothing you can do about it. But there's two more things we need added to the election process to make it much better. And one you've already heard about, the serial numbers on the ballots. And that's being addressed by others today. And then I want to address the cameras. I believe that cameras would really help election integrity, and it can be done in a very private way so that people's privacy is not compromised, and it can be fairly inexpensive too. If you do the right, we figured out all kinds of ways, and we need these cameras to film the hand count procedure. In Ordinance 2219 that gave us the computers not being involved in the elections, put in there. In 25.30.025, it's called poll watchers, and it says that persons observing, they may observe the hand count of the ballots clearly and see all the counting activities. So it doesn't mention cameras in there, but it implies that the principle of it is that clearly see all the hand counting activities. And then in the ordinance gave us in 25.30.0120, that's opening of the ballot box, counting. The election officials shall, in full view of any poll watcher at the polling place, in the full view of any poll watcher, proceed to hand count regular ballots voted at the election and record the results. So this also would imply that cameras could be used to improve the integrity and the confidence of the voters. And so, but the borough attorney cites an Alaska statute 15.25 470, and then it's 2P 108. And I read this over and over, and refers to preserving and destroying ballots. And then we're talking about a borough code, and that refers to inspection of ballots. And then, so the attorney and the clerk indicated that the statutes and the code do not allow use of cameras during the counting process because of the privacy of voters and the ballot counting people. But I only see reference to how to save an inspection of the ballots. So I would would appreciate if the attorney would show me how those refer to privacy, so that cameras and that the camera should not be used. I would appreciate that clarity.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Jackie?
Good evening, my name is Jackie Goforth, District 2. You know, for anyone who knows the color revolution, one of the major tenets of pushing socialism and communism into a country is civil unrest. I happen to be married to an Indigenous Native American. I have Indigenous children and I have Indigenous grandchildren. That is the one problem I have with the statement I said last time we met of unceded land that the Palmer people were sitting on. Now, since I said that, I have been receiving so much documentation from out of the blue from whistleblowers you would not believe. And it has now caused me to say, The evidence I have clearly demonstrates that the entire organization has a massive conflict of interest. They failed to fulfill their duties as required, and they have breached the public trust. There appears to be a concerted multi-entity effort underway to undermine our foundations of our city. I am not joking. I would give you the whole course of paperwork, but I don't have to. We have uploaded it onto Facebook. If you go to Palmer City Watch, everybody who's listening, you can see everything I'm about to show you. The history of Palmer is well documented. It started with, 1890 with George Palmer with his trading post, and the railroad moved in. They were moving coal up to the Chickaloon coal mines. We had post office in 1975. In 1935, all of the New Deal colonists came in. We all know that, correct? Well, there was a land acknowledgement ceremony done on museum property, and it says, everyone, my name is Sam, I'm the president-elect, blah, blah, blah. We stand on this traditional unceded territory of the Athabascan people, and we recognize the word colony has hurtful connotations. To take the leap from hurtful connotations from colony and add it to colonial imperialism without any proof is a falsification of data. A museum is required to protect and preserve history, not rewrite it. Now, I have the definition of colony. It's a group of people who settle. Now, there are several different entities. The Moms for Massachusetts Social Justice, they were discussing changing the colony days. Ready? Ready? We can't be so attached to a word that has real hurtful implications for a lot of people. Now, I wondered where that came from, but here's the bottom. Homage to the New Deal colonists feels ubiquitous in Palmer. We're not supposed to revere the people that settled here. Ubiquitous means, by the way, it's omnipresent and everywhere. And it wasn't said nicely. Now here's the real one. This is the bribe. This is all online. You can look it up now on Facebook. Here is the Matsu Help Foundation grant for $15,000 to the Chamber of Commerce. Oh, maybe I can find it. And it is for changing the name. Summer and Winter Festival Rebranding Project. Oh, by the way, on that ceremony, after Sam spoke, Lisa Wade did from the Chickaloon tribe. The groups we're working with have understood that a full name change and a rebrand would not be possible to complete in just a few months, so we did a slow rollout with both festivals, and we'd like to make the move to a full rebrand and name in 2022. The slow rollout was that ceremony, and I have one more thing, please, Madam Mayor, because I have all of these. The last one, I ran across something. Our museum in Palmer has gotten together with the Arts Foundation and the Chamber of Commerce, and they formed something called the Coalition for Arts and Culture. The Coalition for Arts and Culture says that they need more space to display and store the city's historic artifacts. So the coalition's drive is to build an arts and culture hub that will include an expanded and updated museum. That's like contracting out your business to somebody, and they are now building your competition across the street, and they're going to steal your artifacts and move them over there. This is the biggest egregious thing I've ever seen.
That's enough.
So if you care about it like I do, I'm going to be speaking again on next Tuesday at the Palmer City meeting. I believe they need to revoke that contract immediately. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Cindy?
Good evening. I'm Cindy Hudgens, and I would like to speak tonight on the climate change scam. Okay. So I kind of got off kilter a little bit with the whole talking about the Dunleavy thing. I am irate. You cannot go into the World Economic Forum and think that something good is going to come of it. Klaus Schwab, oh my goodness, he is one of the worst elitist, evil people in the world. My goodness, he says that, I can't remember the date, but we will all have nothing and be happy because they'll have it all. And do you think that all these elitist people, these criminal elitists, are going to be buying up beachfront property if they think that this multi-million-dollar property is going to float away in the ocean? Do you know that the Plymouth Rock, where the Pilgrims landed, is still at the same sea level? Imagine that. 500 experts wrote letters to the UN and said, there is no climate change problem. And the Weather Channel founder told CNN, this is all a bunch of malarkey. Well, you know, we have something coming up here in the Valley, the Mat-Su Community Climate Fair. Isn't that great? Now they're trying to push the Mat-Su into the whole climate agenda. So on the 18th of this month, you can go to Turkey Red and have some food and some drinks and find out what problem we have in the Mat-Su Valley with climate change. This whole thing with Dunleavy, it is a sellout to the people of Palmer. It's a sellout. It's like getting in bed with the devil and thinking you're not going to get burned. My goodness. There is nothing that no wording that he could come up with that could make this sound like it's a good idea. Anybody that knows what the World Economic Forum stands for? Anybody? They're trying to push electric cars on us. Oh, this is a good one. 71% of the windmills in Scotland Highlands, they cleared everything out of there, all the trees. These windmills are killing the birds. 71% can't run on their own because there's not enough wind. Diesel fuel is running them. Is that green? Good grief. And the World Economic Forum. Why to Davos, all these important people in their private jets? Well, they can't land in Davos, so they have to take a helicopter to another landing place. And then they can't get that close to where they're staying, so then they take these gas-guzzling big old cars to get there. Yeah, rules for thee, but not for me. You peasants.
So Caleb, do we still have one person or some people online? Okay. So those online?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is David Haig, and appreciate you giving me this time. For over 8 months, there's been a Kenai grand jury investigating evidence of corruption in Alaska's judges. This grand jury investigation is still ongoing. Over 20 people have been subpoenaed, including judges and Judge Investigator Marla Greenstein, because there's evidence she is falsifying official investigations and certified documents to cover up for corrupt judges. After Ms. Greenstein got her subpoena, she hired an attorney to negotiate with the independent prosecutor that the Kenai grand jury had hired to help them. Immediately after this, the Alaska Supreme Court issued a rule change to suspend grand jury power to investigate, recommend, or indict. Article 1, Section 8 of Alaska's Constitution states, quote, "The power of grand juries to investigate and make recommendations concerning the public welfare or safety shall never be suspended," unquote. It is clear the Alaska Supreme Court did exactly this, apparently to keep our brave Kenai grand jury from finding the truth and informing we the people with recommendations and indictments. A November 22, 2022 memorandum indicates the Supreme Court even bypassed their own 13-member Rules Committee, so their unconstitutional suspension could not be stopped. We know that the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly can't fix this problem, but without your help, we the people may not be able to fix it either. So we humbly ask you pass a resolution protesting what the Supreme Court has done. This is a quote from Samuel Adams that sums up the danger we now face. "The liberties of our country, the freedom of our civil constitution, are worth defending at all hazards, and it is our duty to defend them against all attacks. We have received them as a fair inheritance from our worthy ancestors. They purchased them for us with toil and danger and expense of treasure and blood, and transmitted them to us with care and diligence. It will bring an everlasting mark of infamy on the present generation, enlightened as it is, if we should suffer them to be wrested from us by violence without a struggle, or be cheated out of them by the artifices of false and designing men. Let us remember that if we suffer tamely a lawless attack upon our liberty, we encourage it and involve others in our doom. It is a very serious consideration which should deeply impress our minds that millions yet unborn may be the miserable sharers of the event. Anyway, and that's all I had, unless you got any questions.
No, thank you for your testimony. The next person online.
Thank you.
Mhm. The next person online, please.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Mayor and Assembly members. The Alaska Supreme Court bypassed the Rule Committee and changed the rules of a constitutional magnitude. Why? The number of people affected and raising allegations of judicial corruption are too numerous to ignore. What is the judiciary hiding? The courts have taken position resembling that of fascism. This must be investigated and stopped. I am prepared to offer testimony and produce evidence to any grand jury comprised of the citizenry. Well, my name is David Nordland. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person online, please.
Hello, my name is Holly Sheldon Lee, and I've been a resident of the Valley for over 50 years. I hope that this assembly will take a stand for our public welfare and safety and make a resolution to rescind the December 1st, 2022 Supreme Court Order 1993 that suspends the powers of the Alaska Grand Jury when our Constitution's Article 1, Section 8 states that the power of our grand jury shall never be suspended. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online? No. Do we have anyone else here present that hasn't testified that would like to? Sean, you've already testified.
May I speak to this issue? No?
No.
Oh, I have a copy of the resolution. I brought a stack, but I forgot them at home. Can I have you guys pass this out to everybody?
Thank you. Is anyone else that hasn't testified that would like to testify? Do we have anybody else online? No. Okay. So I will close audience participation then. We are at the consent agenda. We have pulled one item. Are there any additional items in any of the assembly would like to pull? Okay, Madam Clerk, then if you will read the ones that remain first, please.
I will. Resolution 23007, a resolution approving the amended budgets for the Clapmac Road Extension Project and the Old Glen Pathway Phase 2 project. Resolution 238, a resolution authorizing the borough manager to enter into an agreement with the Webster Wood Services for the Mule Creek timber salvage sale. Resolution 2310, a resolution requesting that the Alaska State Department of Transportation and Public Facilities prioritize resolving the drainage of the Lucille Creek wetlands prior to resurfacing Big Lake Road and Hollywood Road. Resolution 2311, a resolution authorizing the manager to convert 2 on-call right-of-way inspectors into 1 full-time right-of-way inspector and allow for the hiring of this position prior to the beginning of fiscal year 2024. AM 237 awarded bid number 2343B to Zones LLC in the contract amount of $401,071.58 to provide Microsoft Enterprise Agreement licensing. AM 238 awarded bid number 2340B to Recon LLC in the contract amount of $110,300 to evaluate the sand and gravel potential at several material sites. AM 239, approval to extend final completion date for contract 21142P with Kinney Engineering to July 31st, 2023 for design services of the Felton Street Extension Project. AM 2310, approval of the additional utility relocation cost of $8,994.81 to NSTAR for Wolverine Avenue, Porcupine Avenue, and Beaver Avenue improvements. AM 2312, award of proposal number 23053P to NV5 Geospatial in the contract amount of $400,865 to collect aerial imagery in the borough.
Deputy Mayor?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, then the consent agenda that has been read has been approved. Madam Clerk?
AM 23011, approval of contract amendment to the contract with Harris Consulting to extend the contract to June 30th, 2024 in an annual amount not to exceed $80,400 for state lobbyist services pulled by Assemblymember McKee.
Okay, Assemblymember McKee, if you'll move the legislation and then address it, please.
All right, I move AM 23-011.
Okay, and then would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, I think this is about the second time this has come up since I've been an assembly member. And I used to be a labor relations consultant. And when I submitted my, request for payment to my client, they went through that with a fine tooth comb to make sure that I was doing everything and it had to be quantifiable, identifiable, or else we had a chat about it and ironed it out, or I didn't get it. And I don't think I've ever seen anything. I know I hear, they're nice guys. They know everybody. They go to lunch. They get things done, but I don't know what they do. And for me, $80,000 is chump change compared to what we normally talk about. But for crying out loud, one of the guys, when I was a consultant, we also retained an attorney to make sure we were doing the right thing. And Bill submitted a hefty bill to us with $300 charges for other. And I said, what does that mean? Well, when we think about it, and I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about your client, about the services, that's $300. I said, nope, ain't doing it. And that's kind of what I'm thinking here. We got $80,400 worth of other, because I am not comfortable voting for something where somebody isn't telling me exactly what I'm getting. And it's not good enough to say they're nice guys, they go to lunch, and ain't it great? Is there something that we have that actually says what they actually quantifiably and measurably do that we like? Because if there isn't, I can't vote for it.
Okay. Do you want to address it? All right, Tim.
I'll take a shot at it through the mayor to Ms. McKee. It's lobbying.
I know what lobbying is. Yeah,
I know that. Well, that's what I mean. It's not a simple line item where you're going to say, you completed this task today and that task. It very much is being available, talking to folks, listening to what's happening in the legislature, making sure it aligns with the borough's values and priorities. So I don't think you're going to get like a line item task report like you would get maybe in a traditional contract. As far as you are correct, you've seen it now twice, because we bring this back to the assembly every year for you all to approve, because it is lobbying. We don't do that necessarily for other contracts. My opinion, we get good value for this. I talked to John Harris about the value of the contract. He did not ask or request an increase in funding from what's been done in the past. I know there are a number of expenses he has while he's in Juneau. He stays down there for the vast majority of the legislative session, and there are obviously costs to doing that, to be available to act on our behalf. So I guess with that, if you recall, I just wanted to remind the assembly, we did cancel the federal lobbyist contract last year, because I don't think we were getting good value there. So we do try to evaluate these independently and not just have it for what that's worth. And I'll defer to the mayor. I don't know if she has any thoughts on this as well.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, did you have some comment?
Yeah, following up on what the manager was saying, at the State Home Builders, I just turned out as president last year and was on the board for 6 or 8 years, working my way up. We changed contracts with our lobbyists partway through, and I just want to say, being down there and lobbying myself on behalf of the State Home Builders multiple times, I know I really wish that we had the legislative session in Anchorage or the Valley or somewhere, but being that it's down there in Juneau, it would be very difficult for an organization to have representation if they didn't have someone there the whole session. And it's super expensive to be down there. I wish that we were doing business on the road system and it was easier. I think it would change a lot of this stuff, but I know, speaking as one of the past members, like I said, of the State Home Builders Board, there's no way that we could have been represented without it. I try to keep in contact with our legislators quite often, and talk to them. And I do oftentimes get comments that, yeah, John's talked to us about this. John's working on this with us. John's, so I was one of the people that wanted to cancel the federal one, especially in the post-COVID environment. I don't think we're getting a return on that, but I will say, I think the Matsu Borough would be in a pickle if we didn't have somebody in Juneau. Not saying it has to be this person. I'm not speaking for or against. I'm just speaking to the process. I wish that the legislative session was right here in Palmer or Wasilla, right? I mean, it would make it a lot easier for us to have representation. But being in Juneau, man, down there for as long as they are, we do need to have somebody's boots on the ground. And I do get comments from our legislators that I talk to that John's taking our legislative priorities. I amended a lot of those earlier this year, or I guess late last year, whatever. And they know about it and they're working on those things. And so anyway, that's what I got. I just wanted to say, I think in the nature of how we do political business in Alaska, especially being as far away as Juneau is, that we'd be in a real world of hurt if we didn't have representation down there every day. So.
Assembly person hours.
Just piggybacking a little bit because I had experience going down to Juneau with having John there, and it's kind of like assembly member. What's the definition? What's our requirements? It might be good if we had a few we had to check off, but just having somebody with that level of experience being a speaker is invaluable, and trying to keep up on everything. I mean, it really is just like, he could write us reports, but if he's not talking to people, if he's, not in communication, like we could have the best reports and that wouldn't be as good as the communication that's going. So I would highly recommend if you want to make a trip down there, the Alaska community. I know you're busy with school, but it's really sort of eye-opening, I think, for any assembly member to go down there. And the other thing John brings to it is that bit of realism, like, yeah, you might want that piece of legislation, but this is, the path it's going to have to go through, and or that path's just not open. So that's just my 2 cents. I think it is a contract that's well worth its money.
Okay. Yes. Assembly person McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, every few years we have an election, and we're kind of different in Alaska because I can call up Shelley Hughes or George Rauscher or any of these people they are in our community, they are of our community, they just sit and have coffee with you. Those are the people that are the movers and shakers. Those are the people that are getting it done. I think this is overkill. That's just another layer that we don't need. I don't need a go-between between me and my legislators because I can talk to them anytime I want to, and they periodically come back and hold teas and other kinds of, coffee klatch, whatever. I just don't, it's one of those things where this is Alaska. We have access to our people. I've had the governor in my home, and I had all the other people that you can think of in the legislature, as long as they're of the political persuasion that I am, in my home, and you can talk to them. And I just think that's how you get stuff done. They don't need a translator. Our legislators don't. It's direct hit. And I just think that this is superfluous, and we just keep passing this on every year, and it's like, ho-hum, $80,000 more to the taxpayers for something that and everything you're saying, I know, I understand that, but show me the money. Show me what's happening. Because as long as I can get something done with my legislature, I don't have any need for a go-between. That's just my 2 cents, and then I'm sticking with it.
Okay. I'll chime in here. As you know, I don't chime in on everything, but as being somebody that has been an elected official down there, as well as spending a couple days down there this last week. And you're true. You can call up Representative Tilton. She's going to, Steve's going to answer the phone. He's going to put you through as quickly as you possibly can. But are you going to, and these are some instances that happened to us when we were down there 2 days last week. Are you going to be able to get, especially on the Senate side right now, are you going to be able to get access to, say, Click Bishop in Fairbanks? No, you're not. He's not going to return your call. Or Gary Stevens in Kodiak? No. We met with both of those. We met with Lynn Hoffman. He's been on the finance committee, I think, ever since he was born. So there are people like that. And what I saw with John was he is a former Speaker of the House. People treat him with respect. They address him that way. They shake his hand. When he says, I have the mayor here for the Mat-Su Borough and the manager, do you have a minute? They say, sure, come on in. Anything for you, John, come on in. Those are the kinds of things that we in this area cannot pick up the phone and do. I think there are things that you need in a lobbyist, and I believe John has those. The first of all is to know the value of his clients. I believe he agrees with and knows the value that our constituents hold in the Mat-Su Borough. Also, you need somebody that's credible and that has connectivity. He has both of those things. So I would greatly encourage that the contract be extended. And because of the fact that there will probably be over 500 bills that will be introduced. And let me give you, on Thursday morning, I testified on House Bill 22, which is a bill we discussed earlier. I testified to the fact that this bill was being fast-tracked, which it was and is, even though it's been referred to 4 committees, that we at the Mat-Su Borough needed. At that time, I did not have the memo that the manager gave you tonight with the figures, because we had found out about the hearing at about 4 o'clock the day before, and one of our representatives who's on that committee asked if, and I was the one staying over till Thursday, didn't come home till Thursday afternoon. Mike came home, and so he said to me, would you come and just say something regarding the fact that give us some time to determine how House Bill 22 is going to affect us. How is it going to affect our taxpayers? And you heard some figures tonight. That's going to make a lot of difference. And so the interaction within the people on the Community and Regional Affairs, the House Community and Regional Affairs discussion was our representative from the Valley here stated about it being fast-tracked. And one of the other people who was in support of the bill testified, well, it was pre-filed. You should have been tracking it. You should have had this information from the borough. Well, there's probably 300 bills that have been pre-filed, and trying to get all of that information. So just in a small situation like that, where you're just having that influence, or you can start to hear in the hallway, okay, this bill's going to go sideways, where the borough is in agreement with this, it's going to affect that. How are you going to react? And we can't have that. And I know there was, without probably this maybe being too political, I know before my election as mayor, there was discussion regarding the fact that we shouldn't have a borough lobbyist, because that should be the mayor's responsibility. I gladly will lobby on behalf of any decision the assembly makes, but I am not moving myself to Juneau for 90 days and live in a hotel room, even if my husband goes along. And because I feel that I need to be here for taking care of the constituents, the people that call and were concerned about the snow berm in their driveway that you get a call for 5 times a day or something. So anyway, that's my feeling. And knowing if you want some interesting reading sometime when you can't go to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, pull up APOC and look at what lobbyists get paid. And $80,000 is probably one of the lowest rungs there is. You add a few more zeros to it, probably at least one more zero to other ones that are getting represented from this area. So that's my soapbox.
I just
Okay,
got a couple.
Anybody else?
Can I just do two more things and then throw it
Sure,
away?
ask me anything you want.
Sure. I'm tempted to say you get what you pay for, and I should not say that, but I'm going to, because if you get $80,400, and I can't say that we have anything quantifiable to say, but I'm also looking at a political superstar, and that's you. I can't imagine that anybody would refuse Edna DeVries' call because you don't have to fly down. You pick up the phone, somebody's going to answer. So I get last shot, just making my position known. I think it's an unnecessary expenditure of the taxpayers' money. I think we could get it done through our elected officials. Thanks.
Right. I think it would be very interesting on an invoice. For many years of my life, I worked for a CPA where we had to keep track of, okay, I spent 2 hours on, company A's books, and then, 45 minutes on company C's books. And, I had every day had this many entries onto my time card. And if you did something like that for, I don't know who at the borough would have extra time to be able to search all of those out. And he would say, okay, at 9:55, I stopped so-and-so in the hallway and asked them, okay, where are you on the House? I'll just use House Bill 22 since that's something we're talking about tonight. Where are you on House Bill 22? And they say, well, we're going to do it now for the state troopers, but, next year we're going to do it for the teachers. And that's, a 5-minute conversation, but it tells you what is going to be happening in the future. And if you're not there for that 5-minute conversation, how much is that worth for 5 minutes? That's quite a bit of money when you think about what that's going to cost. So anyway. Any further discussion?
I just want to thank you for explaining all that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Further discussion? Okay, are we ready to vote then? I think we do have objections, so.
Assemblymember Hale.
Yes.
It passed with Assemblymember McKee opposed.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, so there's no unfinished business. The next item is new business, and we have some introductions. Madam Clerk?
Introduction for public hearing on February 21st, ordinance 23-6 with accompanying resolution 23-6, ordinance 23-9, ordinance 23-10 with accompanying resolution 23-9, and ordinance 23-11.
Okay.
I move to introduce the legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearings for February 21st, 2023.
Is there any discussion on any of these introduction items? Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, and the legislation is introduced. The next item is the vacancy report. Deputy Mayor?
I move to confirm the mayor's recommendations as follows. Agriculture Advisory Board, Kimberly Berge and Thomas Berge. Library Board, Catherine Cross. Resignation of Kathleen Shoup and Joanna Walsh. Plating Board, Robert Halford. Calswell, FSA number 136, Philip Johnson. Talkeetna, FSA number 24, Christopher Bird. Kinnick, RSA number 17, Tyan Jimenez.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, the vacancy report is approved. There is no other new business, but we do have a referral, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 23008, an ordinance amending MSB 1524-031, initiating and amending link management plans.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
I move to refer ordinance 23008 to the Planning Commission for 90 days.
Discussion? Any objection? Hearing no objection, the legislation is referred. There are no reconsiderations. Let's see, I guess the next item is comments. Assembly person hours, parting comments?
Yeah, I know this body has no oversight on the Palmer Museum, but since it's been brought up a couple times in front of us, I just wanted to mention my experience with it, that my daughter worked there for a summer and volunteered there, and almost exclusively her job was documenting colonist history. She worked under Sam Dingus and worked a lot with Richard Estelle, who's the son of Ruth and Howard Estelle, who were very central in the colonist history. And she scanned copies of and I'm sorry the folks aren't here, but she scanned copies of the Valley Settler, which was a newspaper back then, the Matt Valley Pioneer, and the Banana Belt Breezes, which was the high school newspaper, and documented, what do they call it? They have a really funny word for archiving objects, but people would donate things from the colonist era, all sorts of things. And there's this whole recording process that has to be done. And where you document it, you take a picture of it, and it has a number, and the photographs, they were scanning those and putting those online. So I just kind of wanted to mention that a huge part of what that museum has been doing, or at least in her experience there, was documenting that and preserving that great colonist history. And it was great to have her come home. She asked Richard all sorts of questions and got really fired up about the history out here and the agriculture and et cetera. So again, I know that's nothing that is within this body's purview, but I just wanted to mention that since it had come up a couple times.
Okay. Assemblyperson Hale, do you have parting comments, sir?
No comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Attorney, parting comments?
According to the clerk's schedule, we have 18 meetings between now and the end of May. I think when we have the interviews on Thursday night for the prospective assembly candidates, we should probably give them this.
I forgot to put 2 on. I'm joking. I didn't. I'm joking.
You want to put on 6 to make it even 2 dozen or something? Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments? Okay. No? Assemblyperson Veneer, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and ask God to bless the Matsu Borough and to let us rejoice in all the blessings that He bestows on us, and even the trials that we go through and tribulations, that we may always look for Him and guidance, and give us wisdom of Solomon, dedication, and love of Job. And I just ask and pray to bless everyone, Lord. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Parting comments? Parting comments? ma'am? Deputy Mayor, parting comments?
Yeah, real quick. 3 of us spoke earlier on the school bus situation, so I won't add any more to that. But I do look forward to hopefully a resolution or solving the problem here in the near future. But I would like to take a minute, though. I regret not doing this the last meeting. It would have been closer to the event, but the dust has settled. The white dust has settled on our recent snowstorm situation we had in December. And I wanted to take a minute to thank our contractors. I think it was pretty clear for anybody that drove around that when you got to state roads, you were wishing you were still on borough roads. When you got to Anchorage, you just turned around and left. When you got to the city of Wasilla, you had to wait a lot of times for people to pass, right? One lane, for long after it, right? I don't come to Palmer, so I can't speak on behalf of no. Everybody struggled, but I will say that I think our contractors did far and away the best job, right? So I wanted to I hope they all know that they did a great job. We're going through some changes. We've got unbelievable leadership in the department, in my opinion, and we hopefully will be able to deploy a lot of the money this summer that's in these RSAs and upgrade a lot of roads this summer and maintenance and different things. And I'm really excited about what the manager and his team got going. And I just wanted to put that out there. You guys are working really hard and I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you. Yes, Assemblyperson 2, go ahead.
I just want to echo that. Thanks, Rob.
As you know, one of our legislative priorities is the Kinnick Arm Crossing. And last Tuesday, the manager and I and Representative Sumner had a teleconference with the governor and his commissioner of DOT, talking about the restart of the Kinnick Arm Crossing. And one of the things he asked us to do was to get resolutions or letters of support from the cities within the Matsu Borough. So I have contacted them and I'm working on them. I did also reach out to Clay Walker in the Denali Borough, and both mayors at Fairbanks, both city and borough, are friends of mine, and so I reached out to them also for that. So just so you know that, and Representative Sumner was given some direction also from the governor, and so that took place last week also. So, okay. So with that, we will adjourn at 7:42, it looks like. 7. We didn't quite meet the 7:30 that somebody asked earlier, but 10 minutes close enough for government work, right? Isn't that what they always say?